Today we're going to talk about language exchange apps and the dangers that they pose. I recently had a conversation about this with one of my partners. It was generally about social media. And I want to talk about, I could get to a video on social media dangers in another video, but in this video, I want to specifically talk about language exchange apps and how they're not actually safe. They're not as safe as you think they are. And I'm not trying to discourage you from using a language exchange app if you're interested in learning languages. This video, what my intention with this video is that you are aware of the dangers so that when you do go on a language exchange app, you don't make mistakes that could, you don't make decisions that could be regretful in the future. So I've only been on one language exchange app, and that's HelloTalk. Now, there are probably tons more language exchange apps out there, like YoMe is another one that I've heard of. There's a bunch of other language exchange apps that I've never tried. But I know specifically about HelloTalk, specifically speaking. And they have, I would say with a lot of apps that are specifically meant for language learning and language exchanges, they have certain guidelines. And me having been on HelloTalk 3 times, I am pretty much familiar with these guidelines. Now, I'm the type of person who likes to provide authentic personal information. I don't like to lie about my personal information. I like to provide authentic information. But of course, there's always going to be people that make assumptions that I'm probably lying about my personal information. That's totally up to their fair judgment. But I usually, generally speaking, will provide authentic information about, authentic personal information as long as that's not being shared with anybody. However, there are people who don't do that. And that's what you have to be aware of, because with HelloTalk, one of the rules is that, one of the guidelines is, let me list some of their terms off the top of my head. You are subjected to termination. That means your account can get permanently deleted if you don't provide, if you've provided fake personal information and profiles, if you use the app for dating purposes, or if you send sexual messages or sexual content to people. That's as far as I remember. So although those rules are there, just like any other social media, although those rules are there and social media developers expect people to provide authentic personal information, that's not always going to happen. Even with a language exchange app like HelloTalk that provides a lot of safety barriers to keep their users safe, there are still going to be people that slip through the cracks, so to speak. There's still going to be people that those rules are very hard to enforce, because there are still going to be people that are going to do anything they can to literally leap over those barriers. And very rarely do those people ever get reported. So which makes it a lot harder for developers like HelloTalk, like the HelloTalk team, to catch people that are providing fake information. So even on a language exchange like that, there is still a risk of people that, even though the rules are still out there, there is still a risk of people that will literally jump over the barrier to provide fake profiles and do anything they want. And that's the scary part, because you don't know what that person is going to do. You could literally find a partner. You could literally find a partner so to speak, you could literally find a partner maybe on your search, and or someone can find you and message you, and you look at their profile and say they claim to be like 15, 16, but they're not. You have to, they're not. They could be lying to you. And so you have to be really careful about those things. So even with a language exchange safety app like HelloTalk, you still have to be very vigilant about who you talk to, because there are going to be phony faces out there. And so again, like with this video, I'm not trying to discourage language learners from going on language exchange apps. What my intention with this video is, again, I want you to be aware of the dangers so that when you do use a language exchange app, you're a little bit more vigilant so you don't end up making mistakes that possibly could cost you your life in some situations. It could cost you your life, it could cost you your financial kind of stuff. It could cost you a lot. And so you have to be careful with these things, because internet these days, it's very easy for people to lie. And even on a language exchange app where they try to put barriers, it's still not secure. Like, there's still going to be people that jump over those barriers. And so here are my tips. First, look at the profile picture. Every time you create, especially on HelloTalk, I know for sure, when you create an account, they require a profile picture. If the profile picture looks a little awkward, or it looks, if a profile picture looks awkward, or it looks really, it looks strange, they're probably not who they say they are. Like, they could be, like, for example, you could find, like, someone who claims they're 14, but they have a picture of, like, something that is kind of creepy or inappropriate. That person might not be 14. So if you find a picture that looks really suspicious to you, the person is probably not who they say they are. Now, of course, there are a lot of people out there who will use creative images as their profile picture because they don't want to show their face. That is very understandable. I think showing your face, it can pose dangers. Some people are comfortable with doing it, others are not. I really don't know, because every time I show my face, it's not really an accident. Like, I don't really realize that my face has been shown on camera because I can't see anything. But I've had people usually trust me because of the profile picture. Because I literally didn't know what else to do for my profile picture, because I don't use profile pictures on literally anything. So I use kind of like my facial expression as my profile picture, and a lot of people kind of went with it. But there are other people who will take creative measures to kind of cover themselves up, and that's totally fine. But sometimes that can also make it easier for people to lie, so you have to be very careful with that. Second, pay attention to the person's demeanor when you're chatting with that person. If that person seems very creepy, or you're not comfortable with that person, immediately block them and report them. This is very important, because if you're talking to a person who is, making advances like that, or they're kind of warning you, oh yeah, I might be a little weird at times, that's probably a sign that they're probably going to do something creepy, and you have to get yourself out of that situation before things escalate, because you don't want something to happen to your life. This could be a case where your life could be at risk. This could be one of those cases where if a person's demeanor is very creepy, your life could possibly be at risk. And those are things that you definitely want to avoid. Third, on HelloTalk, just a quick note, if you're under the age of 18, HelloTalk does have protections that prevent minors from talking to anyone over the age of 18, so you cannot change who can find you. It's automatically set to between the age of 8 and 17, and you cannot change that. And I love that. However, there's still going to be creepy adults, probably about 20, 30 years old, that are going to pose as children just to lure young kids into their pathway. And that's something you definitely want to avoid. So even if you're under the age of 18, be careful, because there are still going to be adults out there that are going to pose as minors to lure you into their lives, which could be potentially dangerous. It could risk your safety. Third, if you're really worried about not being able to identify that someone, you can identify that someone is really a partner that you're looking for, or who they say they are. I would recommend turning on the exact language match feature on HelloTalk. You can find that on your settings. There's a setting there which says exact language match, and if you turn that on, only people who speak the language that you're learning and they're planning on learning the language that you speak can find you. So no one else can find you that way. You can also set it to where only people nearby can find you, so that you get to actually meet the person in person. Still, there can be some potential risks, but that could be a more safer alternative than if you were to chat with somebody far away and you have no idea who that person behind your screen is going to be. That could be potentially a safer alternative if you can find someone locally and meet them in person. Just remember that if there are any people that might be harassing you or making you uncomfortable, just pay attention to their overall. Just be vigilant. Be aware of who you talk to. Be aware of who's in your search history. Look very in depth into their profile. And if a random person finds you, I would say if you plan on switching over to other social media with that person, such as Snapchat or Instagram or anything like that, don't do it until you trust that person to provide authentic information and that they say who they say they are, because when you go into Snapchat where there are less secure barriers, there's nothing really to protect you. That's where predators can really see that opportunity to really target you. So, if you want to move, if you're not a permanent member of HelloTalk and you're thinking of leaving, and you still want to stay in touch with a partner that you are close friends with or whatever, and you want to move to another social media platform, make sure that you know who that person is, and that person can prove to you that they are who they say they are, and they have provide as authentic information as possible before you move to another platform and stay there. You don't want to be moving to someone that you haven't been talking to in you don't want to move to another social media platform with somebody that you've been talking to literally for 12 hours. That's not long enough. That's not a long enough time frame. You still haven't gotten to know that person. That person could be a potential danger risk. So you have to be very careful with those things. My friends my international partners on Snapchat, I've originally started with them on HelloTalk, and I've only added them because they say who they say they are, and they have a demeanor that is age appropriate, and I can trust my safety in their hands, but that's not with everybody. So you have to be very careful with those kinds of things. That's all I have for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this, if you guys want me to do a video on like just the dangers of social media in general, you can leave it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.